This is recording superstar Beyoncé's entry into the whiskey market named SirDavis Rye Whiskey. This bottle is a collaboration between the artist and Moet Hennessy and is named after Beyoncé's paternal great-grandfather, Davis Hogue, who was, according to the story, was also a farmer and a moonshiner during Prohibition. Celebrity whiskey is usually taboo in the world of American whiskey, with most being low proof, poorly sourced, poorly blended, and usually comes off like a money grab. And while most folks felt the same way about this when the whiskey was announced, the final product and who put it together maybe want to give this one a chance. Come right back and check it out. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help me keep growing to 100,000 subscribers as I try to hit that milestone here in 2024. Now, as I mentioned, this is named after Beyoncé's paternal great-grandfather, Davis Hogue, who was a moonshiner during Prohibition. Now, SirDavis Hogue supposedly stashed bottles of whiskey in the empty knots of cedar trees for his friends and family to enjoy, according to the brand story. I mean, who knew?
You must not know about me. You must not know about me.
Now, I'm sure there are some whiskey enthusiasts out there right now rolling their eyes, and whether or not it's true, I mean, embellished stories are used in bourbon all the time. So if it helps sell a bottle, for some it does, probably more so for Beyoncé fans, but what matters most is what's in the bottle. So according to the SirDavis brand, the whiskey was inspired by Beyoncé's passion for Japanese whiskey, and the brand describes this expression as reminiscent of Japanese and Scotch whiskeys while retaining the spicy flavors of typical classic American rye whiskey. So the bottle itself is beautiful. I mean, it's tall, it's luxurious looking, it's got this really nice decanter style. I think the horse on the front is actually Beyoncé's horse. I think the horse has a name, like Charlie or something. I don't know, I'm just guessing. All right, let's pour this. All right, so what made me interested in this whiskey is that SirDavis brought on the legendary Dr. Bill Lumsden, the world-renowned master distiller who was head of distilling and whiskey creation for Glenmorangie and Ardbeg distilleries for more than 25 years and has been a fixture in the industry for almost 40 years.
I like it a lot.
So Dr. Lumsden selected the brand's mash bill of 51% rye and 49% malted barley and finished it in sherry casks. Now the whiskey is sourced by MGP in Indiana and it's finished, blended, and bottled in Beyoncé's home state of Texas. It's bottled at 44% ABV or 88 proof and retails for about 90 bucks. So I already saw a couple of Scotch channels review this one because I think, you know, the way it describes it's closer a little bit to a Scotch except for that mash bill, which is rye, but I think they were interested in it because Dr. Bill Lumsden was involved in the process. So, all right, let's get into it here. I immediately get sherry and I get like a sweet orange peel note, which is kind of nice. But mainly, I think the interesting thing is it comes off like a rye whiskey. Now, it does have a very, unusually high barley content. I mean, you're just looking at rye and barley in the mash bill, so no corn to sweeten it up. So it's right there like halfway between a rye whiskey and a Scotch whiskey with 49% barley. So the one thing you do get is a lot of rye. I mean, it does come off like a rye whiskey to me. Definitely a sweeter rye, a finished rye, whatever you want to call it. So you do get some nice baking spices here. A little bit of a ginger snap, I think, there too. The one thing I also get is kind of a sour note to it. So maybe it's like a sour orange or even like a sour lemon. There's something sour coming off the nose for me. And I'm just guessing that's from the sherry maturation. There's a lot of different types of sherry, but when you talk about bourbon or Scotch maturation, I should say, there's usually, Oloroso and PX are kind of the two big ones. Oloroso being a little bit more nutty, a little bit more heavy, PX being a little sweeter, a little more fruit forward. So you have some different types of sherry out there, not really sure what they're using here, but you sometimes can get some sour type of notes or even like a sulfur type note from a sherry cask. Not really getting sulfur here, but I think I am getting the sour. So, all right, let's give it a try. A lot of rye spice up front and on the finish, but in between, yeah, there's a good amount of sweetness. I think the sherry does provide a lot of sweetness, a little bit of a toffee note. So a lot of spice up front, a lot of spice on the back end too. For an 88 proofer, this actually carries a good amount of spice. It's not completely, too flat. A lot of celebrity whiskeys that you try are just way too easy to drink. And I mean, I realize they're making it for a specific audience. And we have to remember that this is also for a specific audience. So, you know, it's one of those things where you just kind of have to take your mind out of that aspect if you can. I know it's hard to, especially when you have someone like Beyoncé who's putting her name on a bottle like this, but... So, man, when you're kind of reading about it and kind of seeing that bridge between Japanese and Scotch, I feel like I could see that. Like, to me, it drinks up front and the mid palate like a Japanese whiskey. It's very subtle, it's very light, it's very sweet. A lot of those orangey, citrusy notes are coming through. You're getting a little bit of like a raisin from the sherry cask, but it's not very deep and rich at all. It's actually very light, but the back end, this is all American rye whiskey. There's a lot of spice in the back end, a lot of kind of cinnamon red hot like candy on the back end, maybe a little bit of like a clove type aspect to it. But again, everything is light. And even though this is probably a little bit more interesting than other celebrity whiskeys I've had, you know, it still drinks light. Remember, it's going to be, again, for a specific audience. It's very sweet to me. I think I do get a little bit of that sour note on the mid palate as well. Hopefully that goes away over a little time. Sometimes it does. But honestly, I don't think this is, you know, that bad. You know, I've had some pretty terrible celebrity whiskeys, and this one actually probably rates on a higher grade for me just because of that rye finish it has. It's got a nice little lingering spice. But again, the front and the mid palate I think is just very sweet. I actually think Beyoncé fans who maybe never had whiskey before, I think that spice on the back end might be like, ooh, might be a little too much for them. I know you probably throw an ice cube into this and it just probably turns into candy. Yeah, I just think there's a good mix of citrus, probably that, again, that sour orange note that I'm picking up. It's a little bit of like a butteriness to it. Again, just some spice, some baking spices, that rye spice on the back end. It's actually a pretty nice whiskey. It's not, I mean, everybody's, you know, here's the thing. I think when you attach a name to it, especially a name like Beyoncé, everybody, especially whiskey enthusiasts, we're just kind of trained to hear money grab. And I think that's what, you know, even I went for when I'm like, oh, now Beyoncé is getting in the game. But when you see someone like Dr. Bill Lumsden putting their name behind it, it's actually not bad. Now, is it worth $90? No. It's not a $90 whiskey to me by any means. However, I could see why it could be $90 because this bottle looks like it was maybe expensive to make. I'm not gonna do a full final breakdown here because I just think this is one of those whiskeys where if you happen to see it and you're at a bar, get a pour of it, hopefully it's cheap. All right, last sip here. Yeah, I think the more you drink it, the more the sherry comes to the forefront. I'm not sure if that sour note is going to go away, like I said, or if it's gonna affect people's opinions of this one. We'll see how it goes, but I could see how that could be a little off-putting for some folks. But like I said, I feel like fans of Beyoncé may get this bottle, they'll throw it in a glass with a bunch of ice, and it'll probably be an easy sweet sipper. But $90, it's not worth it to me. But as far as the celebrity whiskey goes, with Dr. Bill Lumsden behind it, it's actually not half bad. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Beyoncé SirDavis Rye Whiskey. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments what you're thinking about this one. Is it something you just want to give a try? Is it something you're going to write off because it's a celebrity whiskey? Or are you generally interested in it? Or are you just a fan of Beyoncé? I don't know. I don't know if you walk around your house singing Bootylicious. And with that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers. I'll see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Cheers, guys.